So before we start the Grapple Asia podcast episode, we want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors and people that support us. Softspot.Açaí. Kat has a little store now in Tonglo, and they do some incredible acai. It's sugar-free, no preservatives, and they have little pop-ups around the place. They had a little pop-up in Paragraph and M-Quartier recently, but they're mainly based in Tonglo. They're available on Grab as well, and they do some great dairy hybrid options as well, and their nut butters are incredible. The pistachio one I highly recommend personally. Our sponsor is fightaesthetic.asia, and if you use code Grapple Asia, you'll get 10% off everything except from the Alpha Gi. So thank you to Aesthetic for always supporting us, and we actually do also supply them in Thailand with free shipping as well. Another shout out is our new sponsor Khine, and they do homemade Burmese food for delivery. They're available on Viber and Facebook, and they do things like mohinga, coconut noodles / ono khao sway, and they're available for delivery. And then our last sponsor or supporters is Staline.food, and they do high protein prepackaged meals, frozen. They do protein drinks as well that they can deliver, and if you use StayRate50, you'll get a little discount on delivery. And I highly recommend some of their flavored yogurt chicken protein drinks. They actually go down a lot easier than you think. So thank you very much, Staline.food. All right, so this is Grapple Asia interview, episode 19. Yes, 19 now. And today's guest is Jozef Chen. And, well, I think everyone knows who he is now. He just competed at Who's Number One, beat Elijah Dorsey. And then a week after that, you went up against Andy Valera, basically. And now, 2 weeks after that, now you're going to be competing against Thai, right?
Yeah.
Thai for 1FC. Yeah, so, welcome to Bangkok.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Long time coming.
Yeah. How do you find Bangkok so far?
It's nice. I mean, I think most cities in Asia for me are very refreshing, especially after having come from the U.S.
Yeah.
Just because, I think I've grown up in like Asia, Southeast Asia, and stuff like this, so it's much more of what I'm used to. So
yeah.
So far, this is my first time in Bangkok, so far so good.
Yeah, you've been down in Phuket for a little while before, though, right?
Phuket's different though. Phuket's more of a holiday. Like I don't think I could spend more than a week in Phuket. You know, it's just like personal preference. I prefer I spend most of my time in I like Kuala Lumpur, like Shanghai, Taipei. I like Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I prefer the cities more or less.
I've been to Penang before, but I haven't been to KL yet. We actually did an episode with Aaron a while ago, and that was episode number 17, I think it was. I think it was number 17. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that was an interesting experience. So you started jiu-jitsu at 14 in China, right?
Yeah, Nanjing.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I moved to Nanjing, China when I was 12, turning 13. Mm-hmm. Been a classmate there, basically, who introduced me to MMA. And I did, striking on and off for, a year. And then eventually, went to find the local jiu-jitsu gym. And then, that's when I think my first jiu-jitsu, during the academic year that ended, when I turned, for my 14th birthday, we were in South Africa. And I got a private on the beach by some 10th Planet Purple Belt. Mm-hmm. And then that was my first jiu-jitsu class. And then when I came back to Nanjing, started training. And so
it's hard to see jiu-jitsu in China because they use completely different social media apps basically. But I remember speaking to a friend. He owns I think it's an AOJ affiliate in where is that? Kunming.
Yeah. He had Mikey out just recently, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it seems like it's exploding in China right now.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, this is where I trained for the most part. Mm-hmm. Since I got most of my belts there and so on. I only really started traveling internationally around 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I definitely think from when I started to now, it's completely different. I mean, we just got the first Chinese trials winner, right? My friend Xu Haiqing, he just won trials. And I think that's a pretty huge step. I mean, there are people who've competed internationally in China, but no one who's won anything significant.
Yeah.
Even gi or no gi. There are people who've competed, maybe do Asia Open, maybe medal, but nothing, or even medal, win a master's division, but it's nothing to the degree of winning a trial. So I believe, this is definitely a huge step I think in the right direction, because I've known Xu Haiqing for last 3-4 years, something like this. So seeing the progression, I mean, it's definitely quite evident. I feel.
Yeah, I was quite surprised at how high the level actually was when I the thing was, they did the first trials in Singapore, and then I knew Shinya, who runs. I think he used to run Synergy in Singapore, but then he's moved back to Japan now, basically.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and all of a sudden he just told me like in confidence, "Oh, we're going to do it in Bangkok," and I was quite surprised about that. And then when I told Dot, he's part of the Air Force, but he's actually the head of the Thai national team for Jiu-Jitsu. It's all under kind of like the Abu Dhabi funding and the IOC and stuff like that, basically. So when I told him, he was like, "All right, cool," and he didn't seem to think it was that big a deal, because he just thought it was like another ADCC Open, basically. But when he realized those trials, he was like, "Oh, I had no idea." So none of his athletes actually competed.
Oh, really?
But they have to pick and choose the competitions they go to, because obviously they're paid. They're paid athletes, right? So they have to do the competitions that basically the government want them to do, basically. So they didn't know about the ADCC trials, but yeah. And they don't really know much about leg locks yet either, because they have to compete in like it's spelled different as like
it's JU or something, right?
Right, because there's national teams from Mongolia.
Is it like Sea Games stuff?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay,
Yeah, so most of them compete in those games, basically.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, the ADCC trials. I think we had maybe only 3 Thai competitors actually did the trials.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that few.
Yeah, there's only a few, honestly. There's one guy from there's 2 guys from my gym, and there's 1 guy from another gym, basically, and that was basically it.
That's surprising. I mean, I imagine having it hosted in like Bangkok.
They didn't know. I don't think they actually
really,
they didn't just know like how big a scale this was, or the fact that it was like an ADCC trials.
Wow,
so, but all the best guys are foreign, and they live down in Phuket, so they can't obviously compete. But then all the Australians came, basically.
Fair.
So it's pretty good, yeah. My question is, what was the major turning point where you shifted from like just doing it as a hobby and then like turning into, let's say, like a high level athlete?
I mean, I definitely wouldn't say I turned into a high level, but it's kind of, I think the point in which my path pivoted to going towards like competing at a high level would be the pandemic. So I was actually, when was this? So Chinese New Year of 2020. So I went back home to Taipei for Chinese New Year, and I actually ended up being stuck there for a few months. And so this actually put me in a very unique situation where I was able to, basically, the borders were closed. So actually, life there was completely normal.
Yeah, because they shut down immediately, right?
Immediately, because of SARS, right? So they were familiar with, like, they had some protocols in place. And so I was stuck in Taipei for, let's say, 3 months. And then basically I had the freedom to train as much as I want. Basically had no schoolwork to do. And yeah, that kind of led me down the path of being able to train multiple times a day. And so after that period of time, I was at Taiwan BJJ training a fair bit, and I cross-trained a bunch. And then when I went back, I remember I wrote a note to my mother telling her, I'm like, oh, I actually want to try do this more or less full-time, and I want to try commit to training. And I was doing IGCSEs and A-levels, and I was like, you don't actually have, there's not much coursework to do. If I just do the exams, I self-studied all of my exams after that, and then did it that way. And so she was okay with it. I mean, took a fair bit of work and convincing. But eventually we got there. And then, so after that, I was an orange belt at the time. Then I started training more or less daily. And then after having done that for like, I guess a year or so, then I moved to Shanghai, because in Nanjing, there was training, but the volume of training and the training partners were much fewer than in Shanghai. When I went to Shanghai, I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. There are people training, a lot of people training during the day, a lot of people like really committing a lot of time to improving, like pursuing this full time, as opposed to my home gym where I started in Nanjing BJJ. Like my coach at the time, Guillaume, he had work to do, and some of the other coaches were busy. It's like they're not really pursuing being a competitor. It's like it's more of a job, So really. So at some point, I kind of outgrew that and decided to move over to Shanghai.
Yeah, I see over there training at Method quite a lot, right? That's the main gym that you train at when you're there?
Yeah, so it was formerly Absolute MMA.
Yeah.
And then it transitioned to Method after the head coach Kamal left. He went to Australia.
Yeah.
But yeah, I trained at Absolute, and then it became Method. And so yeah, that's generally my home gym now.
Yeah. So your connection with Taipei or Taiwan, your mother lives over there.
My father.
Oh, your dad lives over there. Sorry, just out of curiosity, just usually it's when it comes to biracial parents, it's usually the dad that's usually
White.
yeah. That's a polite way of saying it. Yeah, and then the mother's usually Asian. Like, is that the same? Is that the same setup for you as well?
No. So my father's Taiwanese.
Right.
And my mother is South African German.
Right. Okay. Damn. Yeah, my dad's Japanese as well. My mom's half Scottish, so yeah, it's usually the other way around.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So you were training at Taiwan BJJ at Makoto's place.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. I know him quite well.
Oh, he's funny. He's hilarious.
He is a funny guy.
Love him.
Yeah. I think I've only ever been to Taipei once, and that was for like a competition back in like 2017. That's where I met him. I got really friendly with the other guy that owned a gym down in Kaohsiung, Dan Reed, if you know him.
Oh, I know. He's also Scottish, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's why.
I've met him before, but I'm not so close with him now.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Nice.
Yeah. So you go home quite a lot to go visit your dad then?
Generally. I mean, I spend the most time in Shanghai because that's where my sister and my mother are.
Oh, right. Okay.
But I do visit Taiwan fairly frequently. Not since the pandemic, I haven't really visited there for more than like maybe a week or 2 weeks at a time. I just usually go back, see family. My grandmother's there.
Right, okay.
All my aunts and cousins are there. Just like usually I go there for Chinese New Year. That's like the minimum.
Is there any kind of like distinctive like differences in the culture between like, let's say, Taiwan and China in terms of like jiu-jitsu?
In terms of jiu-jitsu, I definitely think China's, I almost think like when I'm in Taipei, it's too, I don't know. I feel like when I'm in Shanghai at least, I do think Shanghai is, at least for nogi, I would say probably for jiu-jitsu in general, is like the pinnacle of Chinese jiu-jitsu, like just generally. I do think there are some outliers, like some very good practitioners elsewhere, but it's like the highest concentration of like fairly good jiu-jitsu competitors are in Shanghai. And I just think that there's a lot more like drive or ambition to get better per se. Like I think people are training harder, and not harder per se, but more frequently and more diligently, and like kind of working towards this goal of trying to be at a high level. Then like I feel like most of my friends, like I can only talk about the place I've trained at in Taipei, but like for example Taipei BJJ, there are not many young people trying to compete. All my friends there are masters something. You know, it's a great vibe. It's awesome to train with, but no one there is like really trying to make a career out of being a competitor, whereas in Shanghai, that is more the case. Yeah. Especially with Shanghai, there's the PI as well, and so there's some crossover there as well. So a lot more competitive aspirations there.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Why do you think your growth was so accelerated in comparison to someone else that, let's say, trains as much as you do, for example? Like, was it the way that you learned, or do you, like, how did you learn, basically?
If we're talking about, like, the same volume of training, I would definitely say, like, I mean, I was fortunate enough that I was introduced to, like, a lot of very, like, intelligent means of training very early on. So my original coach in Nanjing, he's under a guy named Rob Bernacki, and he's out of Nanaimo in Canada. He has a gym called Island Top Team. And so he was like very heavy on a lot of like concepts in jiu-jitsu. So a lot of the way I approached training it really stemmed on that. And at a similar time, when I had no responsibilities in school, I was watching a lot of tape and I was listening to a lot of podcasts. So this is when BJJ Mental Models, if you're familiar with this podcast, started kicking off, and it gave me a lot of time to really listen to a lot of these ideas. And the guys who started Mental Models, one of them is black belt under Bernacki, Matt Kwan. And so it really introduced a lot of these ideas and kind of exposed me to them more after having already been somewhat familiar to them, just because of my coach really teaching that. But then being able to go into more depth. So like, for example, he talks about like different ways to interpret information in jiu-jitsu. So he he has this thing called alignment theory, which is basically everything can be broken down into posture, structure, base. And then he defines these things. It's not just like, this is something I really like, where it's like, if you want to think about a problem, right, things have to be fairly clear for you to actually like derive things from them and then come to conclusions. So for example, it's not like, you hear this a lot where it's like, oh, you want to be in good base, but what does it actually mean, right? It's like, it's hard to define. So he like came up with definitions for all these things, and so it makes it easier to think about. So for example, like base is, well, at least his definition at the time was, your base is your ability to generate and absorb force relative to your goals. And this is a very like easy definition. So you can think about base more creatively now, because now you can fit that into so many different positions. Base isn't just being on top and being stable.
Yeah.
Base can be, you can be on bottom playing guard, but if you have a good ability to carry weight and then like exert force, this means you're in good base. Similarly, like you can make different analogies, right? If I'm a sprinter, there's optimal base for sprinting, but that doesn't mean it's the optimal base for everything, right?
Yeah.
Similarly in jiu-jitsu, it's like this is how you can kind of take an idea and carry it over to a bunch of different areas. So stuff like that was really helpful for me. So I think thinking about things that way, and then obviously not having many obligations. I mean, being 15 years old during the pandemic, didn't have much I had to do. I didn't do much homework. So
when you see jiu-jitsu in a lot of the videos like on YouTube, for example, like it's kind of like, it seems like a little bit of like a meathead culture with like wrestling and stuff like that as well. But then you seem to take a lot more of like an intellectual approach to jiu-jitsu. Do you think some people just do it on kind of like a instinctual level? And you think
I mean, not everyone. I definitely think there are a lot of people who are very like intelligent about the way they approach it, but it would be, there's no denying that there's definitely that culture of being like, like being very strong sport, and like kind of just like trying harder, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, this and this. I mean, I might be mischaracterizing, but isn't like pohada like just like this kind of idea of like, oh, you just want to go. So I mean, I definitely think there's something to be said and something valuable about doing stuff like this, but then there's also, you have to use it intelligently. This can't be everything you're going with. You know, so I think like balancing the two, it's like you can't be like only toughness. And I think of this as like an idea that I really liked a lot was, actually I think I got this, it was like a distinction between growth and performance. And like, I believe I got this from a YouTube video talking about Tekken or like Street Fighter, where I was like talking about the difference between the two. And it's like some people, if you're too much in a growth mindset, so like, it was like honers versus innovators. I think this is like a similar analog where some people, they just hone the same skill set over and over and really try to refine everything. And then some people, it's not so much about refinement, it's more about innovating with new ideas and trying to bring new techniques in. And so I really think ultimately in jiu-jitsu, it's about balancing the two. And it's a bit of a deviation from like going hard and like a meathead culture. But some people, it's like, I think, how can I connect this back where it's important to balance the two. And I found, like, for me at least in my jiu-jitsu, it's like basically when I'm about to compete, it's performance-based, and that's really refining what I already have.
Yeah.
Versus when I'm in a more of a off-season or there's no immediate competitions coming up, then I'm in a more growth mindset where I'm going to be trying to on-take new information.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of characteristics for each of these like mindsets, right? So if I'm more performance oriented, I'm going to be a lot more intuitive with the way I approach my training. I'm not going to think too much about, okay, what's happening in this position? What are some, I'm going to do what I know, and I'm going to try to do that in a very timely manner. Versus in a more of this growth mindset where I'm trying to on-take new information. I'm going to work at a slower pace. I'm going to think more consciously about things. And this isn't necessarily conducive to like winning, but it's going to help me really think about what I'm doing and then on-take new ideas.
Yeah.
And then I feel like some people, they just do one too much. You know, there's some people that are just like, they just drill and they just play around with stuff, but they don't really take the time to refine it to the degree where they can use it competitively. But then there are some people who have a game that they just stuck to, and that's all they do. And so I think ultimately for me, I was very intentional about this, where I was just, I was really like, I'm going to spend X period of time doing like this performance-oriented approach, and then X period of time going with growth. And it's not like, I'm not so systematic in the sense I'm like, 2 weeks. It's more like a feeling, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's like, I feel like, I feel pretty good with where I'm at for my skill set for this certain comp, so now I'm just going to focus on refining.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
I mean, I went on a bit of a tangent there, but hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, just how I see it is like a lot of people in most gyms, they just kind of want to come in, do their rounds, and get out, basically, right? Like the way the jiu-jitsu class is structured. But you seem to have this whole other level of like learning, basically. So, so when you're training, for example, you don't kind of do the traditional like 30 minutes of class, positional sparring, and then just rolling, obviously, right? You approach it in a whole different manner.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with doing that. Cause,
of course, yeah.
I mean, jiu-jitsu is like, to different people, it can be different things. I think this is one of the things that makes a hobby I'm not saying jiu-jitsu is special. Like whatever hobby you're doing, it takes you away from. It can give you a means to socialize. Can give you a means to stay fit. Can give you like something to think about. Right? It's like whatever you want it to be. It can be this for you. I'm not saying everyone has to approach it exactly the way I am, right? But for me, it's the reason I enjoy it is because it kind of gives me this like intellectual playground where I can think about all these different ideas in this way. I mean, obviously there's the bonus of, okay, I can stay somewhat fit, and then I can also socialize. Like, I mean, most of my friends, I mean, are met through jiu-jitsu. I don't know how I would have known them otherwise. So yeah, but I think that's what I really enjoy the most. So like what you're describing, where it's like this kind of approach. Like I was fortunate enough again, where fairly early in my jiu-jitsu journey, like I was encouraged to watch instructionals, and even during class, once I got to a certain level, my instructor was like, man, you can drill as long as you don't interrupt the class, just drill whatever you want to drill. You can like, they're very open discourse about a lot of these new ideas, and he was very open to new information. So it really was a great environment for me to actually like really try to learn a lot of new things.
Yeah. So if we're going to discuss, like if you're going to tell, like, explain this to an idiot.
Same, bro. That's the reason I'm doing jiu-jitsu, you know?
So like, in terms of like when you're doing training, for example, so let's say, what would that look like in a typical, let's say, week or month, and how you're trying to do it basically? Is it like mostly positional sparring? Is it I'm studying this and I'm going to try and do this during a roll? Yeah.
So, I mean, for example, like right now we're leading up to, for me, CGI, Kenta, ADCC, right? So right now we're still far enough out where it's not going to be like super performance oriented. We're still working on the skills that are going to be, or what we think is going to be appropriate for the rule set, but then slowly incorporating rounds, maybe like a shorter volume throughout the week of, okay, well, now we're going to do a competitive ADCC round. And like, this is something I think is very important. And it's like, you need that period where you get to practice these techniques, but then you need a period where you can actually use them in a competitive situation. So, right now, it's going to be more oriented towards ADCC, and that's the goal. But then when we're outside of that, man, I might just do something because I think it's cool. Yeah. Right? So, for example, like a lot of stuff I was playing with before I came into like this camp is like nogi omoplatas, and then using that and how I can play with that. Just because I found it interesting. I think it's cool. I don't think it's like mixing omoplata with crucifix and K-guard, and then like what Levi does in terms of like Xanadu guard, and this is just because I find it interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of my progress in jiu-jitsu is led by my own curiosity more than actually trying to win. You know, I mean, like now I do think about, okay, what's the strategy for me to win a match, right? But it's still like largely guided by, okay, I think this is pretty interesting. I'm going to try to play with this. Yeah. So it's curiosity and the fact that you actually you had time to study, and you like, would you say you like to study as well? I mean, I like to study if I think it's interesting. Yeah, you know? Yeah. I think it's honestly about like finding what piques your interest. I do think, I mean, sometimes it can be, I'm not going to tell anyone you should sit through like an 8-hour instructional and bore yourself to death. I watch that. Some people hate it, but I watch those videos on at least 2 times speed. Yeah. By the way. Oh, but, right. Yeah. Yeah. I think we all know who we're talking about. But, but basically, I mean, I do that if I think it's necessary, right? But I try to be fairly introspective with where I think I need the most improvement. And so I'm like, okay, like for example, I feel like my supine guard is bad. Okay, then I'm going to work on my supine guard. And then what are some areas to start? I mean, it shouldn't be too difficult to find. There are plenty of instructionals talking about this, plenty of practitioners who do this very well. Yeah. And so whatever piques your interest, go down that path, you know? Maybe it's not the most like optimal path. Like maybe you do something and it's like, oh, you kind of come to the conclusion where it's like, okay, it's not that good, but then you pivot, right? Yeah. So regarding the introspection as well, like you're thinking, oh, maybe I need to improve here, maybe I need to improve there. Would you say you can definitely like accelerate that via having someone else looking at your roles as well, or did you start doing this like by watching your own roles first? I think it's most important to do it yourself. Yeah. I think there's nothing wrong with having like a coach help you, and I think it works very well. But in the long term, you want to be able to do it yourself. Yeah. Right? You want to be able to not rely on someone else, because otherwise you're going to be more or less a reflection of them and not your own practitioner. I think that there's definitely a time and a place, and it's not necessarily wrong to like really take some stuff from like an instructor, but that can't be all.
You can't
like,
just be getting like spoon fed the whole time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think if you're just doing it for fun, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to get like, I think, as good as you can, you're going to have to, it's going to be a lot of you doing the work, you thinking about, okay, what am I going to do here? What do I think works for me? Because again, like I'm sure, you've trained for long enough to realize this, where it's like something that works for person A won't necessarily work for person B.
Absolutely.
Right. And then also thinking about why that is the case. And that's going to help you become a better instructor.
Yeah.
And it's like ultimately becoming your own jiu-jitsu mind, where you're able to think about these problems critically and then derive certain solutions, and then you're able to like, I don't know, make everything make sense a little bit more. So, this is, I don't know, I feel like kind of the path that I went down, especially like really trying to get as good as I can just because I thought it would be cool. Like I signed up for my first trials when I was an orange belt. Yeah. It got delayed till 2021, 2022. But I thought it was always fun,
So the question for me is like, technically, you'd think the Asian trials would be easier, right? Technically, you would think that. Like, I don't know what the level. It's getting harder now. Yeah. Right.
Levi has a win over me.
Yeah.
It's like, it's hard for me to say it's easier.
Yeah.
Whereas I won the Europeans.
Yeah. Because Mateos was here and he made the argument that the under 77 division for the Europeans was harder, like probably the hardest division in the world.
I think statistically it was. I beat 3 ADCC vets.
Exactly.
There's no other trials where anyone did that. So statistically, yes, but and it's always the case where it's like person A versus person B. It's like jiu-jitsu math doesn't really work. Yeah. Right. So like, I beat Mateus. Mateus beat me too, but I beat Mateus. Mateus beat Levi. Levi beat me. It's like, it really depends on the rule set. And like, I can make the argument. It's like, okay, maybe I might have not lost to Levi in an ADCC rule set. Yeah. Right. But this is like, I don't think it's like much of an argument to be made just because it wasn't that rule set. But I think overall, just the fact that they're like, for example, like, Kenta, I believe the trials that Kenta won, he was the only ADCC vet. Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. The one in Singapore.
Yeah, the one in Singapore. Yeah. And same, the one in Bangkok, was there any, Ben Hodgkinson? Ben Hodgkinson's an ADCC vet, but that's it. Right? I'm sure I'm probably missing someone. But
so based on my question was like, why did you decide to do the European trials?
First.
It was the first one, just because that was
the first trials I ever did was the second 2022, or I think it was in 2022, the second European trials. And the reason I did that one was because that was the first one where I actually had the means to go and train and compete. Right. I wanted to do the one before, but it just didn't work out. Yeah. And I wanted to do, there was supposed to be an Asian trials before in Sydney before that, but because of the pandemic, it got delayed. Right. And so that ended up being the first trials I did.
It was just out of convenience, basically.
I got ankle locked by Mateus. Yeah. And then I did the only Asian trials at that time, lost to Kenta. And then after that, the first trials was the first European trials, and that's the one I did, and that's the one I won. So I plan on doing every trials until
you got it.
The reason I was at Singapore was because I booked my flights after my European trials, because I anticipated going to have to compete in Singapore. Right. Okay. I was like, if I win, I win. If I win, I'll still go. If I lose, I'm definitely gonna go. So.
Oh, fair enough. All right. I was just wondering because like that was probably like one of the craziest trial runs ever, basically, especially the under 77 with the amount of people. And like Mateus also said as well, it's super challenging in the fact that you only have 6 minutes to work, right, with the way the rule set works, and then it's 8 minutes for the finals as well. Yeah. So you actually have to be tactical as well at the same time. Because one little mistake can like basically lose you that ticket to ADCC now.
One mistake will lose you your ankle. Yeah. That's what's one of my ankles. Mateus should have known this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're pretty cool, I must admit. Like, they did a really good job at the leg lock camp down in Phuket. They did one at Bangkok, and then they did one, they did one
PGA
at Phuket, PGA first, and then Bangkok. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing a camp with them in Poland soon after ADCC.
Yeah, that's right. CGI. Yeah. They said if you have time, come as well. Yeah. And you're planning on doing a camp in Malaysia, I think, around October as well, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, someone invited me. John did, yeah.
Come by, yeah. I don't think it's announced yet, but
not official, right? Is it KL or is it?
I have no clue. I just said yes.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I like the guys there. I love the food. I like the people. You know? I mean, Kale's actually, I used to live in Kale.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, when I was young. But
yeah.
Only for a year. But.
Yeah. Aaron's an interesting guy. I just like out of nowhere, I asked him, "Can we do an article together?" And he said,
"Who's
yeah."
Aaron?
Aaron Go. He owns Leverage.
Leverage.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I know him. Okay, I know him. I mean, I know the face.
Yeah.
It's like hard. Once you said the owner of Leverage, then I knew who he was.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
He's an interesting guy. Like basically, I said, "Can we do an article?" Because like just I didn't think like. I just think logistically he's a gym owner. He's probably really busy. And then like he did the article and he just said, "Mac, I'm gonna fly over to Bangkok. I'll be there within like a less than 24-hour period, and let's do the podcast basically." And that was actually that kind of like that kind of led to a few things I'll talk about later. But yeah, let's just say he was very outspoken. Let's just put it that way. Yeah,
I know a few people like that.
Yeah. You said your 3 favorite. I can't remember which podcast it was. It was either the one with Scott or the BJJ Fanatics one. You said your top 3 instructionals was half guard passing and dynamic pinning with go further faster with Danaher.
Yep. Then
it was just stand up or power top.
Probably power ride.
Power ride,
yeah.
Right? And then the other one was
Maybe Nicky Ryan wrestle up.
It wasn't the wrestle. It was something else. I can't remember what it was now.
Maybe this is like the most underrated one.
Yeah. Oh, that one.
I think. I mean, those are probably also like 2 of my favorites.
Yeah.
Are you asking if I still feel this way?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
I mean, I'd probably say in terms of my favorite instructionals, man, it always it changes a little bit.
Yeah.
I think those are definitely some of like the good starting instructionals. One of my favorites, John Smith setups and tie-ups. It's like an old VHS instructional, and it's sick. It's so awesome. It's so cool. I really like it. I think it really discusses ideas very clearly and in a way where I find it's like very digestible. It's hard to find on the internet.
I can imagine. Yeah.
I had to go on like MMA torrent or something like this to find it. I couldn't find it. Like on YouTube, there's like a I think a part of it.
Yeah.
And then I watched this. I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. I need to find the rest. Couldn't find the rest. I only found it on like some torrent website.
Yeah.
And then, I think I recently revisited Ryan Hall's old instructionals.
Yeah.
I watched his like head and arm chokes and stuff like this, and it's also sick.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure everyone knows Ryan Hall's like his instructionals are awesome, but even the old ones, I don't know when they were filmed. I was trying to look at when they were actually filmed because it looked like, I don't know, maybe 2010.
It's the old school with like the curtains behind, right? Yeah, those ones are amazing actually.
Those are so good.
Yeah, they are.
I like, they're not out like. And like this is circling back to what we were talking about before. Bernanke actually took a lot of inspiration from Ryan Hall. He went to go and train with him and stuff like this. And so a lot of the ideas like Ryan Hall discusses, like basis of the platform to generate absorb force. That's basically stolen from Ryan Hall.
Yeah.
And I think it's just so brilliant the way he was like articulating a lot of these ideas. I like the way he talked about like frames and all. It's just. Even now, I love the way like Danaher and them instruct, but it's. I don't know. It makes a lot more sense to me the way Ryan Hall was teaching in those instructionals. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. I do think like maybe it's like I wouldn't even say it's out of date, but it's not not the most cutting edge anymore. But I mean, I still learned a bunch of stuff going back to the Curtain DVDs. It's not even his new ones.
Yeah,
I haven't even caught up on his new ones. Which I was actually talking to Kenta today about like, man, I gotta get these instructionals.
Yeah,
and then I was like looking for them. So I mean, yeah, I think. I mean, those instructionals, it's not like I dislike them. I think they're awesome. But, I mean, I'm sure everyone... the go further, faster, half-guard passing dynamic pins, I think is still pretty underrated.
It's incredible, yeah.
Like, it's really good. I mean, that's where a lot of my ideas with near-side underhook came from. And then I like Paul Schreiner's tripod passing, also very good. A lot of near-side underhook. Sean Williams, Body Lock the World, a lot of near-side underhook. He's like... It's almost like too much detail, but it's like really good.
Yeah.
So that one I have to watch pretty slowly because otherwise I'm like...
Yeah.
I think those are some of like the more interesting instructionals that people might not.
Let's say for example, let's say Danaher, right? So every time he comes out with an instructional, apart from the go further faster, there's basically 8 separate videos that you have to download, right? If you're gonna break it down, like in terms, what do you think the optimal way to like study his stuff is? Would you say, like 30 minutes at a time, drill it, and then go back, or what would you say?
I mean, basically what I do, I watch it on 2 times speed. And then I watch it until I find something interesting. When I find something interesting, I'll screen record it.
Yeah.
And then that's what I'll drill. If I don't find it interesting, the likelihood is I'm not going to drill it.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's true.
It could be the case where I hear it's not even the technique that I'm drilling.
Yeah.
It's more than just the technique. It could just be an idea that I find is like, oh, I never thought about this situation or this position in this way. And I'm going to record that. And then when I go back, I'm not just drilling the position. It's not like, oh, he's going to put the hand here, I'm going to do this. I'm thinking about what he's talking about and how I can like understand this better, and then how I might be able to apply it in different ways.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just like, okay, we're going to drill technique A. Okay, we're going to do like some random technique, and then that's the drilling. It's like I'm really trying my best to like take it for more than it is, or take it like for what it can be, you know? Not just like at face value. It's like, okay, we're just doing this one technique. Really trying to play around with the ideas that he's trying to communicate. Because I think he does like really talk about some really interesting things. So I think a lot of like, for example, like if he talks about, okay, we're going to focus on weight distribution in this position. I'm like, okay, then how can we manipulate weight distribution? Yeah. Right. For both players. And something I talk about a lot is actually when drilling, having a dialogue with your training partner. I mean, this might be controversial, but I hate drilling for reps where it's just like, unless you can't perform a move like uchikomi style. I mean, maybe in judo, because it's like timing is much more important, dynamic.
A lot of we had one instructor called Rodrigo. It's like Japanese Brazilian, and he actually like went to university in Japan on a judo scholarship, and basically whenever he warms up, that's what he does: uchikomi, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say it's like I'm going against like I don't know how many years of like training, but like for me, just doing the same thing over and over. Maybe because like with standing, it's a little bit different because I guess the window to hit moves are like a lot smaller, and then there's an argument to work on timing. But I think you have to be very deliberate with what you're working on. If you're just doing like
reps,
like just reps for the sake of reps, I really don't like this. Like I try to talk to my partner. I'm trying to understand the position more. I'm trying to understand the way my partner feels in the position. I'm going to try to understand what they can do to affect my options and stuff like this. And this is just like, again, this is going to give you more insights to everything that's happening. It's going to give you more information to make decisions. And then let's say, now this is probably like fairly like growth mindset, right? I'm trying to understand the position more. I'm trying to make everything very explicit. And once that's the case, then I can dumb it down. But I need to make everything clear for me to realize, okay, what's important, what's not. Right. Because if I just guess what's important, this is maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, you know? But if I can make it clear in my mind and make everything make sense, like really try to single out most of the variables that matter, then I can decide, okay, where should I focus my attention? Because realistically, I'm not going to be focusing on like 10 different things when I'm trying to pass your knee shield. So I'm maybe focusing on my elbow position, my head position, and your knee position. Maybe that's it, you know? And then in certain situations, it might just be one of those. So, I mean, and then I think the reason why I can do that is because I've spent the time in those positions, and you can kind of first, like, I believe, like, I don't think, I like the Josh Waitzkin's book, The Art of Learning. Yeah. I think it's a bit vague sometimes, but like he had good ideas where it's like the two concepts I talk about a lot that I really like there is like, he has this idea for making smaller circles, which is like basically really zooming everything in. And then he talks about numbers to leave numbers, which is making everything more intuitive. I think both of these are like opposite sides of a spectrum, but are very necessary for improvement. Right? If the problem's not clear, you're not going to be able to come to good solutions. But then if it's like there are too many variables to think about, you're not going to be able to like use the solutions you come up with very effectively because just like there are too many things to think about. And so really trying to play between the two.
Given that like you actually really like Danaher's stuff, what made you choose B Team instead of New Wave then? Yeah,
I mean, this is a good question. I mean, I think everyone who goes to Austin to try train, it's like, I mean, I was like, oh, maybe I can do both. Like, oh, probably not. But basically, it was the environment that made me choose to. I mean, I didn't go to. I went to Henzo's, and I went there for a class, and it was like too crowded, and there was no time to drill your own stuff, right? And ultimately, that was the deciding factor. Yeah, the class was amazing. I thought it was sick. Yeah, but I felt like it kind of. I would have lost the person that, like, kind of made me as good as I am now. It's like I just feel like I would have to sacrifice too much of myself to put myself there. You know, it's like I'm
okay.
drilling the technique that's being taught. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But I don't have the autonomy to practice anything by myself. You know.
Right. Okay.
And so this is like a lot of what, like, is important to me.
Yeah.
This is what's interesting. It's like I guess it's similar in school. Like I had very little appreciation for what I learned in school at that point in time.
Yeah.
But maybe now looking back, I'm like, oh wow, that topic was actually really interesting.
Yeah.
But it's like you kind of have to come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
It's like it's the difference between someone telling you what to do versus you coming to that conclusion. I feel like it's really important. Like obviously, the best way to go about this is like, I ask the question and you provide me the answer. But I need to ask this question. If you just tell me the answer, it's like, I mean, many people say this, right? So I'm not saying anything unique here, but I think the reason I chose B Team was just because it was an environment which enabled that, right? There's plenty of time to drill, plenty of space to drill. I wasn't forced to do anything, you know?
Yeah.
So it was cool.
Okay, so it's more of an open learning environment, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying like, I mean, I'm sure I've heard now there's a lot more space and maybe, I believe there's like a Q&A section and it just seemed at the time as the better fit for me.
Yeah. So you traveled around with Kenta around Asia, right? And
I mean, just a little bit. I mean, not too much.
Not too much?
Singapore, and we're in Japan.
Yeah.
And now we're here. But
a little bit of China as well, right?
Yes, he did come to China for a tour. Yeah.
So my question,
now that you say it, a little bit. I didn't think of it that way, but
because I remember she was making a comment where like as long as you have one really good training partner, like you can still train at a very high level even when you're like traveling around the world. Yeah, she said that, right? And she was talking about how she was doing that with Brianna basically, and obviously with Mikey, for example, he would rotate in like a few guys that rotate as well, but his main training partner was Coco basically. And so my question leads to, why did you choose Kenta then, basically, as your life partner?
I wouldn't say this. I mean, I think I don't spend that much time with him, to be honest. I see him like. I met him. I saw him in Austin recently. I saw him in Japan recently. But it's not like, I mean, I definitely spend more time away from him than with him. You know, I don't want people to have like this impression that I'm with him all the time. You know, I mean, he has his own life in Tokyo. I'm like barely with him, but I mean, I don't think it was like a choice to. I do feel like I have a few different people that are great training partners of mine. Like, it's not just Kenta that I train with. Especially with the degree in which I travel, there's specific places. Like, everywhere I go, I basically have people I like to train with.
Yeah, of course.
And that they're familiar with the way I like to train, right? So, like, I guess with Kenta, is like, we're basically in the same boat, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, we're both, like, trying to pursue a competitive career. I mean, we're in the same weight class. I feel like very similar goals. And it just kind of... like ended up being the case where it worked out well. Whereas like we have like, I don't know, it's a very good like training relationship where we both really help each other improve, where like it'll be like back and forth where he comes up with some ideas and I try to come out with a way to deal with it. And then it's just like it provides like a really great opportunity just to be able to build. And I think this is the most important thing. I feel like similarly with like Shu Haiqing, he's like my main training partner when I'm in Shanghai, you know? I have few other training partners, but he's someone I train with very frequently when I'm there. And like, I mean, I'd say most places I visit. So like when I'm in Singapore, there's a few people I like to train with there, and like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And Austin as well. Austin, obviously, there's Kenta, but then there are other people that I like to drill with as well. That
I'm going to be 40 next year, but it's just like. Like, I like the idea of traveling and training, and I used to love it when I was like a little bit younger as well. But it's like, your traveling frequency, the amount of jet lag they get, the amount of flight time you have, the amount of transit that you have, and stuff like that. Don't you find that quite you don't find that affects your training at all?
Oh yeah, it does. For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely toning it down a little bit more.
Yeah.
Now that I'm trying to figure out a little bit more of my setup. I mean, before it was just like, I think the problem was it was too easy to say yes. Yeah. It's like, oh, you don't come here and train? Yeah. You want to do a seminar here? Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I'm close enough. And then it ended up being situations where it's like, I'm doing a seminar in one city one day, a seminar in another city another day, and I sleep 3 hours to make it. Because I have a 6
This is what I wanted to, so, exactly.
Right? I mean, it's hard to do that and not suffer, like, health-wise. So definitely trying to avoid that more. Like, I don't necessarily say I enjoy the travel, but I mean, I guess I do. I mean, but I'm not really searching. Oh, I want to go to this place, this place. Just like I'm in the area, I may as well.
Yeah.
You know, I'm very used to traveling. I've traveled a lot since I was young.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
so
if you're mixed as well, right? You have that kind of like experience where like you're growing up in two different cultures as well, and it makes you a lot more flexible when it comes to traveling, I think.
Yeah, and like even with jet lag, I've trained myself to sleep pretty well.
Yeah.
Like for the most part, if I need to, I can just put on a certain playlist and I'll fall asleep.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
I mean, it definitely does help in some ways, but I definitely do think it does suffer sometimes.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to like reduce the time I'm traveling. I'm planning like either to like, because man, for like the last 2 years, I think the longest I stayed anywhere was like a month and a half.
Yeah,
And that's the longest. And there was like times where it's like a few days at a time, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then I move.
Yeah.
So I'm really trying to up the time I spend in each place now. Like maybe a month and a half, 2 months, 3 months. Like I'm thinking about maybe like a 3-3-3-3,
Yeah.
or maybe a 4-4-4, something like this. But still figuring that out a little bit. Like towards the end, after CGI, I'm probably do a few seminars, head home for a while. Yeah.
Is that Shanghai or Taipei?
Shanghai.
Shanghai.
That's
Okay.
I
That's
live with
home
my
for you.
dad,
Okay.
but I
Yeah.
live with my mom. I grew up with my mom.
Right. Okay. No problem. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking. Yeah, you probably mainly stay with your mother because that was the same kind of setup with me. Because I was in Japan until I was 12. Then I moved to the UK when I was 12, and I was there until mid-20s, I think it was as well. But I would go back and visit my dad as well.
Fair, yeah. No, my parents got divorced when I was super young, so
Yeah.
I just ended up living with my mom.
Okay.
I just live with I live with my mom since I stopped living with my dad when I was like 4 or 5.
Oh wow. Okay, that
I
is.
mean,
young,
we stayed
yeah.
in contact though, so I mean, I'm still very, like close with my father.
And you'd see him annually, I'm guessing.
And more than annually.
Yeah.
So especially as my parents get older, I want to see them more and more. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And especially, I mean, Shanghai to Taipei, close flight. You know, it's not difficult.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into the topic now, which they're like the juicy topics. Then, okay, you won trials. Now you're doing CGI. First question is why?
I mean, definitely. I mean, there's the monetary incentive.
I didn't realize they only paid like 10K for like winning the divisions in ADCC. That's absolutely insane.
Crazy. And it's been 10K since the inception of ADCC.
You'd think they'd raise the money like double it at least by now, surely, right?
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's a good cause. Obviously, for me as someone, I mean, just like monetarily, I can acknowledge the prestige of ADCC, but it's nothing that, in my mind, like competitive achievements don't mean much to me. Like I didn't care that I won trials.
Yeah.
I still don't really. It's like it doesn't mean much to me.
Really?
Like I just like to train.
Yeah.
And competition is a means for me to make a living to continue training.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm starting to like feel less stressed with competition now. Like I'm getting more and more used to it just because having competed more, and that's like that's why I'm competing so much.
Yeah.
Right. But like it was never did I really feel like, oh wow, I want to win ADCC or I want to win a world championship. Oh, I think it's fun. It's cool. But it's so making that switch. Like a lot of people are like, oh, it's the prestige of ADCC, which I can like acknowledge, but it was never really a driving factor for me to do ADCC. I was just like, it's like a cool event. I mean, I want to compete at the highest level I can.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's ADCC. But when that opportunity arose where Craig was doing CGI, I'm like, yeah, that sounds sick.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I'm close with Craig, so I got some inside scoops on who might be joining.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is good to me, you know.
Yeah.
So, and also the prospect of $1 million is very enticing.
I mean, there's a huge difference between 10K, obviously. Yeah.
Crazy difference.
Yeah, it's
you know,
crazy.
it's like $1 million. I mean, I'm not set for life, but if I'm not stupid, I'll be pretty good.
Yeah. Another thing is obviously it's an under 80, then it's an over 80. So it's two divisions, right? And is it 16-man bracket? 16-man bracket, yeah. I was thinking to myself, probably the guys that won or are going to be competing under 66, they're probably going to stick to ADCC just because the weight.
I don't think a single dropout happened, which I was surprised. I thought like Fabricio Andre, because he's done well in absolutes. I was like, probably he might do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I'm surprised.
Yeah. And then Mikey's got a super fight lined up, but I don't know who it is. I don't know who it is yet, but yeah.
Maybe off air we can talk about this a little bit more. I have some.
Yeah. And so I think it was just yesterday I saw Kenta's going to stay with ADCC, obviously. Yeah, it kind of makes sense, I guess, if...
Yeah,
well, I guess I can ask him why he decided to do ADCC instead of CJI as well. But
yeah, I told him he should do CJI, to be honest. I was just like, man, 10K is nice to show. I mean... But you can already see the effect like Craig's event is having.
Everyone's jumping ship.
It's not just jumping ship. Now ADCC's paying to show.
Yeah.
Which has never happened before.
Yeah.
And I can talk to you about some things off air as well.
Okay.
In other regards, something like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the goal of what CGI was is to really try to. Cause it's like ADCC essentially had a monopoly on nogi grappling. It's like what are you like? Even EBI is like completely different. It's not occupying the same space, right? So having something to disrupt this this thing that's been in place and has been essentially unchallenged for the last 20 years. It's only going to be good for the competitors, right? It's like yeah.
So I thought EBI was pretty awesome as well, but they kind of went off on a tangent with combat jiu-jitsu.
Those assholes ruined it.
I don't really feel like getting slapped in the face, to be honest. Either.
And also, I started to dislike EBI once it started getting gamed too much. You know, it's like once you saw matches, like basically nothing happening in the match, and then people waiting for overtime. It's like you kind of lost the spark. But man, there was a time where I wasn't training for that time, but I mean. I watched those replays. It looks sick.
Yeah, it did look awesome.
And some of the absolutes, like when basically DDS just kept winning. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, it was definitely something special, I reckon.
Yeah. I used to love watching Metamorph as well.
Oh, they went bankrupt, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened exactly, but something along those lines.
Yeah, it's a bit
I mean, they had Hodger versus Buchecha.
I know, right? I mean, that's pretty much the biggest.
Didn't Galvao versus Huron?
Yeah, Huron. Yeah, that's
right?
it. Yeah.
Crazy.
That's such a shame.
I mean, these things come and go, right?
So so speaking of competitions, so now you have a match coming up with Thai, the one with the short hair, because the guy with the long hair just had an MMA match basically. I'm just saying it because it's hard. I'm a twin as well, so yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Identical.
So that's how we do. Identical. Yeah. Ooh. He went the other. So I went the route of becoming a mat junkie, and then he's married, working at a construction company in corporate with 2 beautiful kids. So we kind of went 2 completely different routes, basically. Yeah. So, in terms of the match, like, how do you see this playing out, or in terms of the rule set as well, and everything considered?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it'll be interesting, especially like emphasizing the idea of the catches. I think this is like a huge deal in one. Or it's like, it's not necessarily who's on top, who's on bottom. It's like really who's looking for the sub. So I'm gonna have to pivot a lot of what I've been working on. Like, well, I mean, first of all, I was practicing for ADCC, which is very submission. Not submission.
Very
position,
wrestling heavy, yeah.
Yeah, position-oriented, wrestling heavy. And then CGI, which is now like, it's a bit up in the air what exactly the rule set's going to be. But
it sounds like it's something similar to what IGA was.
I think something along those lines. So this is like a kind of a more mix between the two. But now, like, one is like kind of on the other side of the spectrum where it's like really a high emphasis on submissions, right? So basically, I mean, I've had to adjust my training to like 1, 10 minutes, and then 2, really focusing on, instead of like worrying about like points, I'm worrying more about, okay, how am I going to get the sub? How am I going to get a sub attempts? So, I mean, how do I really see the match going? I mean, I don't think Thai is like very good. So, I mean, I've no delusions about that. But I mean, I think of it again as like a pretty awesome opportunity to be able to like test myself going up against like a really tough opponent. I mean, someone that I've looked up to for, I mean, since I was like an orange belt, yellow belt, you know. I mean, so it's pretty cool. Yeah, it feels like fun, you know. Yeah,
I mean, did you already agree to the match before you competed against them in the last 2 competitions that you've done? Did you already agree to it, or?
I agreed to it. So I agreed to the Dorsey and the Varela match already, and then I signed the contract. So I signed the contract before those matches, but they were aware that those matches were taking place.
All right, they were okay with it. It's pretty risky in terms of like injuries and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I try not getting injured, you know.
Yeah, because obviously, like, you're one of the guys that travels around extensively around the world. Which country do you think is the fastest growing in terms of Asia right now? And let's say
Fastest
grappling.
growing. Let's say Asia. Do we have what other? I mean,
I think
I can.
technically Kazakhstan.
Are we talking about gi or no gi?
Let's say nogi and then let's say gi.
Okay, I'm obviously much more knowledgeable about no gi, but I mean, all of the trials winners are the only Asian trials winners. And Gairbeg won that, but that was European trials. I believe he's like Russian nationality. Shushu won. That's China. Kenta won, and the rest are Australians, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So I mean, if we're gonna go based, I mean, Japan, Jiu-Jitsu came from Japan, so I wouldn't say that's the fastest growing. I mean, there's the Jiu-Jitsu is fairly established there. So I mean, in terms of like growth, I mean, I don't know what's the argument to be made that it's not China, to be honest.
Yeah,
like
I think so.
It's just hard to say, just because I'm not saying that it's the peak, but it's definitely in terms of rate of growth, I definitely say it's the highest there.
Probably,
right
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think about. There's no other Asians that won trials, right? All of them were Australians besides Shushu and Kenta. I'm trying to think. I reckon. I mean, I'm probably forgetting someone, but
I think with Japan, the way the site's set up, I think it's really not conducive to actually like progression, unfortunately, for jiu-jitsu athletes or MMA athletes. I remember back in the day, I went to Crazy Bee. This was still when Yamamoto was still alive as well, and there's a couple of Cuban guys. Cuban guys? I'm trying to remember. South American guys basically training there basically, and they were explaining to me how the MMA fighters, they're training as full-time athletes, but they're still doing 9-to-5 jobs.
Crazy.
But the way they're doing that is they're basically doing night shift, like road work basically. It's brutal, especially if you want to live in central Tokyo where the best training is as well, right? So it's just not conducive to being like an athlete.
Yeah, it's like there's really not the means to it seems like.
And obviously, like, you see the population decline right now as well. So there's a lot of foreign staff coming in doing all the kind of like the construction jobs, the convenience store jobs. So it's just like, I just feel like Japan's probably kind of stunted now. I don't think it's going to happen in terms of like them. There's only going to be one or two very, very unique people that are going to do that. And I think Kenta managed it.
Kenta's very non-Japanese.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, very rare. Like once you're in the system and once you're Japanese, it's very hard to get out of that system. I know a lot of people that left to train abroad and they just couldn't do it because of the cultural difference and how ingrained their like Japaneseness is basically.
Kenta spent a bit of time in New Jersey when he was a kid.
Yeah.
So
he's kind of lucky in that regard.
He's definitely like not your typical I mean, if you just look at him, he's not your typical Japanese, but also an upbringing, you know?
Yeah. It's it's very hard to get out of the system once you've become Japanese, because even with like I don't know if you know much about Thailand, but Thailand's basically like the Detroit of Asia in terms of like car manufacturing. Okay. And Japan had the monopoly for nearly 30 to 40 years, basically. But if you look around Bangkok, you'll see a lot of Japanese restaurants and stuff like that, right? So basically,
we had ramen for.
There you go. So it's basically tailor made for Japanese people that struggle to live anywhere else apart from Japan to feel comfortable in a different country, basically.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because I know a couple of other athletes that went to the US to go train, and they've now moved back, basically.
Okay. I mean, I don't like the US so much. It's not the place I would like to live.
Yeah, but
unless I was like stupid wealthy, it'd have to be absurd, you know. But just generally, in terms of, it's just so different.
Yeah, it's not only that either, though. I think it's just the way, I have a lot of top European jiu-jitsu people as well. They love coming to Asia now. They hate going back home. Like the UK is a shithole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So I'm guessing the US is kind of similar then.
Yeah, I mean, bro, I could walk 5 minutes from B Team and you'll find a homeless community under a bridge. Right. Probably less than 5 minutes. I'm so serious.
Yeah.
And New York's more terrifying. Like I spent a fair bit of time training in New York. Man, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, Margot told me a story about one of his coaches that duct taped a knife to his chest as well.
I saw a guy get stabbed in New York on my most recent trip. I'm not joking. I'm serious.
That's pretty traumatizing to see that kind of stuff.
I saw this dude in a puddle of blood. Yeah. It's crazy. You know, it's like, I've never, like, it was never really a concern of me, like, growing up in Shanghai or Taipei or, even, like, I don't know. Generally, there's no concern that you're going to get caught up in any of this.
So US is like literally like that. I've only been to Hawaii, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're rich enough to avoid it all,
Yeah.
I think you could make an argument for it being really nice. But as someone who, I mean, I don't have a car there. I don't have a license. But in New York, I take the subway.
Yeah.
It's like, it's very not ideal.
I don't quite like because like when you go to Japan, for example, the subway system's amazing, but then like in the US, it's just like it's basically like a toilet.
Bro, I don't think there's a country with a worse subway system than the US. Like, I mean, there probably is. I mean,
the UK tube's pretty nice.
Okay, it's not that nice. I mean, what's the one from the airport? What's from Heathrow? What's that line?
I can't remember which line that is.
Smells terrible. Still better than the New York subway, but it's like better, but it's still not great. But it's better than the US. I mean, most of the public transport in Europe's nicer, even though basically all of the cities. I haven't been to the subway here. I assume it's okay.
It's the SkyTrain system.
It's good.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's very clean. Yeah, very proper. Yeah, and then there's MRT, which is underground-ish basically as well. But everything's nice and clean.
I'm used to this. Like, I'm in Taipei, Nanjing, Shanghai, Singapore, Hong Kong. This is what I was used to. You know? I thought this was normal. And I went to the US, I'm like, this is insane. I swear, the more time I spend in the New York subway, the higher risk I am for developing some form of disease. I don't know what. Yeah. I'm definitely, something bad is happening to me. Yeah. It's like, it's a different aroma. Yeah. It's like moist, damp. It's terrible.
Yeah. Why do you think the West is like that bad then?
No clue.
Because you think because like they're supposed to be like they're supposed to be like the pinnacle of the like the economy, right? Or like society wise, and then for some reason Asia's just nice, clean, and peaceful, basically.
I mean, it's strange, have to ask someone else. I have no clue. I just know this to be the case. Why? I have no clue.
Yeah. So the training's great, obviously in the U.S. I mean, the best training with the best competitors, they're all in the U.S.
There's no other reason why I would go to the U.S.
At least you're honest. Yeah. Damn. I didn't think it was that bad. Wow.
I mean, I'm sure. I mean, let's say let me see if I can find some of the food's okay.
Yeah. But apart from that, really, it's just a good training, basically.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah.
What else?
Nothing else really.
Tragic, bro. Wow. Tough. But I want to bring my friends from the U.S. here, and I'm like,
yeah.
I was literally on our way here. Me and Kenta, we were like in the cab, right? And we're like, man, if we brought our friends here from the U.S., it would blow their mind. Yeah. Even like just here, it's like, oh, the 7-Elevens are actually nice. Yeah. You know, it's not like terrible.
Yeah. Because once Mikey came here, he never wanted to leave. And like I remember, he came back out. He finished his match. He left for 2 months, and he came back just for a week just to train, basically. And he's like, oh, I'm so happy I'm back. And he's like, I was depressed when I was home, basically. Because he goes back from LA to Las Vegas to train with Cabrini, I think, as well. But he likes staying around here, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's something about it. I like, for me, I think my favorite place to stay is Taipei. But it's almost like too nice, too relaxing. I feel like I would lose all drive to do anything meaningful. You know, it's just like, wow. Yeah. I'm just spend time with my family and relax, you know? I mean, it's almost like, I think culturally you need that kind of like a little bit of that push. And I like Shanghai for this, where it's like, I feel like I want to keep pushing.
I think there's a lack of that in Phuket as well, but it is a paradise in terms of like going on holiday and training.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it like all that? That's like tourism, right?
Yeah, that's basically what it is, basically. Yeah, but what I like about Bangkok is the fact that there are people that do 9 to 5s and work, and there are people that are like driven that want to do stuff here and train. Yeah. And it's just that perfect mix of urban life and just a little sprinkle of chaos as well.
I think this is important. You know? Yeah. I recognize. I mean, I would say Phuket and Taipei are very different. Whereas like Taipei is not necessarily like a holiday destination. It's not tourism based, but it's just so. I mean, I'm so biased. I was born there, you know. So of course I'm going to be like, I love it there. But it's just so nice. It's like beautiful. It's clean. It's nice. It's not too expensive. I mean, housing's pretty expensive, but otherwise it's good. And it's just like, you want to go right up the mountain, chill on top of the mountain, you can. You want to go to the water, you can. You want to go train, you can. It's like, I don't know. It just seems like it's like kind of what you're saying about like the chaos. You need a bit of that like hecticness to. I feel like it's important. It's hard for me to necessarily like communicate effectively and like verbalize, but I would agree with you there. of this type of homeless. But
Yeah.
I'm
When was this match?
It was like 2 weeks ago.
Varela,
3 weeks?
so this was on it's June 20th, and the
Yeah.
Varela match was June 23rd.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I mean,
Yeah, I think back at what?
Cause like I was trying to look for the other match and I couldn't find it anywhere.
Oh, yeah,
I just
it's
saw you with the
terrible.
way with the belt.
I have the video of it if you
Yeah,
want. I can send
yeah.
it over.
Official.
Actually, if you want, I have a breakdown of this. Just a shout out to my
Okay.
Patreon. I broke down the match. So
Okay.
There was just 3 parts in particular that he had picked up that he wanted you to maybe.
please do. I mean,
Yeah.
It was 1 minute 30 seconds here.
It was when the guy goes in for like for an underhook and then you like do an inside trip as well. I think I remember like watching, I think it was the BT Dominate video basically, and then like Dima just said if anybody comes in for a shitty underhook, we're gonna make them pay for it basically.
yeah, this is something. I mean, so
Damn.
if we go back,
Yeah.
let's. I mean, go back a fair bit. Like maybe go back to maybe a minute. So this is the second time he actually had gotten on a single on me. So let's see if we. I mean, he single legged me at some point. Maybe a minute's not long enough, but it looks like he's about to single me. I reckon. No. But basically, like the context behind this was after my trials run, Dima talked about like developing a strong overhook, and how like the underhook is really greatly emphasized in like nogi BJJ. So really trying to go on the other side of that and try to work on what, because everyone's like, oh, double unders is like the best position ever, right? And so like basically developing strong offense from an overhook. Because if you look at any like, if you look at freestyle, you look at folk style wrestling, all of this, man, overhooks are like amazing. Like
Yeah.
it's not there's not this clear distinction of like underhook is king, whereas like in jiu-jitsu a lot of people think this way.
Yeah.
So really trying to work off of that and exploit that. So like for example, I'll if you go back to the inside trip, I'll actually tell you what I did here, where I actually mercy grip because I knew what, if you pause, yeah, like I knew what he was gonna do. He's a left hand collar tie. His right hand, like so, if I tie up this hand, he's basically not gonna be able to do anything, and then he's gonna be forced to tie up with me. If I control one of his hands with a mercy grip, I can start looking to pump the collar tie with my right hand and lead with my right leg. So Murgali, I stole this from Murgali, right? And I pump this, and just because I have this hand, I understand the state it's in. If I feel like he's gonna slip it out, then I switch my stance back to something more defensively responsible. But I'm able to kind of give him that single leg when I have that wrist, because that's gonna give me the overhook in this over under. And then basically like timing his step, right? He was a bit aggressive, and this is like the first time I ever like debuted the inside trip per se in competition. It's something I've been working on a lot, especially right after trials. This is something I was working on like a bunch, like especially like watching a lot of wrestling and such, like Adam's ITF. And so like you see like if we go back, just go back 5 seconds or something. Yeah, like from here, I have that like mercy grip. He comes in, and I basically just pull him in because this is the second time he pulled in on a single on me, so I was able to. This I knew he was gonna do this.
Yeah.
You know, so it became easy. And then, yeah, I was kind of. His close guard was pretty annoying. He went double unders on my legs, which I hadn't seen before. Thought this was interesting. Just didn't want to get armbarred or anything fancy. I was like being careful.
Yeah, I don't compete a lot, but I went up against a guy from actually the Leverage gym. This guy called Tijun. He actually just passed away, unfortunately.
yeah.
You know what I'm talking. Yeah, it's a bit sad, but yeah, I remember. Yeah, but it was ADCC rules and it was the finals match as well. So he was just like kind of sticking his leg out, and then he put me in close guard for a few minutes here as well. It's just a pain in the ass to get out of, especially in nogi.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, especially I think it's getting more and more prevalent. You see a lot of obviously Mika's great at it. The new wave guys are doing a lot more close guard as of late. So I mean, it does seem like it's coming back into fashion a little bit.
So yeah.
But I mean, definitely just doing my best to get out of it. I mean, there's actually an interesting K guard sequence that he went into. But yeah, you see like Couch do this type of stuff as well.
Yeah.
It seems like it's very useful, especially in situations where it's like you want to get contact with someone, right? So yeah.
I think around here, Matt noted a high tripod tension.
Yeah, just
The high
I've been trying to study that ever since I saw you doing that at
Trials.
European. Yeah, exactly.
So he did actually a good job. Okay, yeah. So if we go back and I'll tell you when to pause. 1 second. Pause. Yeah, so you see, like, basically, I'm trying to, like, pressure into his half butterfly knee shield. But then the moment he looks to heist, notice how his right elbow is posted. This is going to give me a great opportunity to insert my left arm as an underhook.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring my head to the opposite side. So now you unpause. Right, and this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And you see, now I can enter this. If you pause again, this is actually my bad high tripod side. I like that right arm.
Yeah, on the other
underhook.
side, yeah, right.
So you'll see, I make the transition. But from here, the great thing I like about this upper body configuration is that I have an underhook on one side, my head on the opposite side, and that affords me a free hand.
Yeah.
Right, so this is what my right hand's doing. And you can clearly see I'm using that to stuff his knee. And this is going to elicit a reaction on his part. He's going to have to address this. Otherwise, he's going to get put into like some form of bad position, whether it's a half butterfly, so on. So if you unpause it now, right, he's going to elevate me. And you see I get to half butterfly. But now he's posting on my hip. But you see how I'm able to really force a big reaction on his part. So if you go back 5 seconds. Yeah, nice. Yeah, you see how he's really having to frame on me. And now I pummel in my right underhook, and I switch sides. This is what I love about it. So if you pause, I'm able to basically, off of their resistance, just keep switching sides. And the great thing about this, you're pinning their upper body.
Yeah.
And the goal is to create a situation where your hips are high enough where it's very difficult for them to elevate you.
Yeah.
Obviously, right now, we're still in the process of like him elevating me. My hips are too far back right now. But also, in this process of him trying to move me and such, it's going to be like fairly fatiguing for him, and especially if you know how to like ride the position more or less. So like he's trying to do these explosive movements, and understand during these explosive movements, he's actually taking his knees away from his chest. He's bringing his arms away from his body, and so it does present opportunities to pass. So I believe I go for like my right knee goes for a knee cut from here over the top. Let's see if this is the sequence. Right, you see how I'm able to like just stay over him. Yeah, it's like a very terrible position for him to play from. His shoulders are pinned to the mat and such. And yeah, from here I knee cut over the top. Right. Yeah. I'm probably going to be filming an instructional when I come back, go back to Austin. I reckon I'll on the high tripod. I have one filmed, but I don't have access to it. Oh. Just long story there, but I filmed it right after trials. Yeah. No access to it at all. But no, it wasn't filmed by me. Okay, so okay. Got some trouble there, but. Oh right, okay. So I've been trying to get it out, but I'll just refilm it. Anyways, I got new stuff to show, so. Right. Okay. It's cool. And then yeah, from here, I mean, this is Gordon talks about this idea of backtracking. So I'm not fighting him getting back to my foot, right? Like a lot of the IBJF people do this, where it's like they're focused more on being in the guard. Yeah. It's like it's still bad, you know. And then from here, basically, if we go back to the backtick sequence. Right, he overcommits to it, like takes his back off the mat and gives me a chair sit. And I didn't even, I wasn't sure how I ended up with the arm trap, but it just ended up being there. Yeah. And this, I was very surprised how this match went. I was not expecting. Yeah, because he beat Nikki, right? Well, he did. Yeah, yeah. He beat Nikki. He beat Taza. He beat Max Hansen. He beat a lot of really good people. So I was pretty. I was happy with it. But yeah, that was impressive. Yeah, quite cool. He's super nice, actually. I chatted with him before and after. Like, seems like a really cool guy. Yeah. So what does it have to be like 100%? Like the score, like it's only okay. So what's the passing score then?
There is no passing. I just chat GPT this like 2 hours ago.
Okay, wait.
Okay, but it's 5. So the standard is 5 questions right now. Yeah, right. Okay. So question 1 is, who is considered one of the founders of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Is it A, Walid Ismail, B, Masahiko Kimura, C, Carlos Gracie, or D, Rickson Gracie?
One of the founders. I know Walid Ismail is pretty funny, but isn't he like an MMA manager now?
He's a psychopath. Awesome. Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Who did he beat? He beat
Hoyce.
Oh, he beat Hoyce.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Got him in a what do you call that one where? Yeah, that's the one, clock choke. That's it. Yeah.
Bro, he used to be. He's just like having fun on the MMA scene now. All right. The Kimura guy, was he the guy that bashed Helio? I assume.
We can't answer these.
Okay, so who is considered one of the founders of, founders of Jiu-Jitsu? Probably the oldest one. It's either B or C.
You're gonna have to choose one, buddy.
I have to think about it. So Carlos Gracie. And so this is. I assume this is Carlos Gracie Senior, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's think. Senior. I don't know which one it is. I mean, I think Hickson is like below down the lineage relative to Carlos Gracie Senior. But is the Kimura guy? I'd probably say Carlos Gracie Senior, since the Kimura guy was a judo guy, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't know. Are you gonna tell me if I'm right or wrong first?
Yeah.
Carlos Gracie.
And you were right, yes.
That's okay.
Okay,
That's 1 out of 5.
That was like the easiest one, bro.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. Question number 2: famous practitioners. Which renowned BJJ practitioner is known as the General and is famous for his teaching at Alliance Jiu-Jitsu?
It's Fabio Gradel. I mean, the only other Alliance guy is Marcelo,
Exactly.
but Marcelo's not the General.
Yeah.
I that was like deduction. I didn't know that Fabio Gradel was called the General, but I just
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I could deduce it.
There's guys out there who don't even know who Hickson is now. They're like blue purple belts.
Bro, that's like fucking J-Rod. J-Rod
Yeah.
doesn't know who anyone is. he's like, who's Marcelo? And I'm like,
Didn't he beat the absolute shit out of what do you call it as well? Imanari as well.
oh, bro, he didn't even know who he was. Bro, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, I'm telling him about. I promise you, he most likely doesn't know who Hickson is. He definitely doesn't know who Kron is. He's like, oh, maybe I heard of them. Bro, he doesn't even know anyone. I'm like, he doesn't even study that much.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, I don't think he studies that. I sent him some videos. 'Cause I was like, oh, bro, you should.
There's
watch
no
this.
way he's watched that.
Bro, he probably knows who Marcelo is now, but he probably doesn't know what he does. He just knows of him. You know, it's like fucked up. And I hate that he's like, and he bashed. Who did he bash? That AOJ guy, Jonatas. Jonathan Alves. Bro, Jonathan's really good.
Yeah.
He just. Yeah, I mean, you win some, you lose some, but I mean, past Thailand, I was surprised. That's sick.
Which of the following is the oldest and one of the most prestigious Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments? A. ADCC, B. Copa Podio, C. Mundials, and D. Who's number 1?
Mundials?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's pretty obvious it is, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Copa Podio is like, I've heard of it. Sounds old to me, but I mean, Mundials is like
Which BJJ brand is known for its logo with an image of a snake?
Venom.
Yeah.
I mean,
That one's too easy.
Keiko.
Yeah.
When I went to, there's a shop in Tokyo. What's it called? That has a bunch of old,
Keiko.
has a bunch of old like MMA jiu-jitsu gear.
Yeah.
Is that what's a B-team vlog?
Yeah, what's it called?
It's at
sick.
Isami store, isn't it?
It's- yeah,
yeah,
Isami,
Isami store.
yeah.
There's one in Tokyo and there's one in Yokohama as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I
Yeah.
was like,
The best store is probably BT Fight Gear or Bull Terrier. They sell everything basically.
other brands.
Yeah, basically all the brands. Yeah. So if you
Is it an outlet
I think it's online. They might have.
online? I don't like buying stuff online.
Yeah, I
like
know.
buying I
know.
hate it.
I think with Bull Terrier though they have a store in Nagoya, but like they're in kind of like that Nagoya area.
I would go to the store just
Yeah.
to like, because I don't know. I like being able to like look at the things,
Mm-hmm.
like feel it, touch it, play around with it, like, because then it's like, oh, you can tell like
Yeah.
the quality, the fabric. Like, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, otherwise you just have to do a lot of YouTube research. Yeah, this shop.
Yeah. It basically looks exactly like the one in Yokohama. That's where my dad lives in Yokohama, which is right next to Tokyo, basically.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Yokohama's nice.
Yeah.
Bro, Tokyo, like some of the places, like when I was in Japan recently and we're traveling around, bro, Tokyo's hectic, but then some of the other places are so nice. I'm like, bro.
It depends on the station, basically, as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not just like I went to Hiroshima. Hiroshima's awesome.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's so nice. I was like, oh, all these. Have you seen all the like? Recently, it's become popular. Like there's a lot of Instagrams talking about like housing, and the real estate.
Oh,
in
yeah,
Japan.
yeah.
I'm like,
I've actually had a few. I've actually had a few friends in Bangkok that train with me. They've asked me about like can foreigners actually own that or buy it because we're thinking of fitting one out just kind of like as a side
you
project.
can't get a residency from
Getting a visa in
real estate.
Japan
Yeah.
is super difficult. Yeah.
It's like I mean you can have it and you can stay there 3 months at a time.
Yeah.
but that's it, right? It's like
It's a really strange one in that they allow like work visas for foreigners now, like for construction for
they
example.
also have a digital nomad visa now.
Yeah. Like, for example, my dad, so obviously this is how bad, like, I remember, I think it might have been like 7 or 8 years ago. I was in a train station and my dad was having his annual company holiday. They have one where they have one in the Philippines, so all the dirty old men can go do what they want to do there. And they have one with the normal staff where they want to go somewhere beautiful in Japan, basically. So I went to the local one. And I knew the country was in trouble when I saw this lady pushing a pram and there was a fucking Pomeranian in it. I was like, oh, we're fucked. That's when I knew we were fucked. I was like, and then obviously what reinforced this was looking at dog diaper commercials in Japan. I was like, no one's having sex.
Bro, that's fucked.
Everyone's going to turn old. We're never, it's bad.
We need a project to save Japan, you know?
Yeah, it's bad.
That's crazy.
Yeah, luckily my
dog diaper, bro, that's fucked up.
That's super fucked up. But it's just that
I feel
like but
it's expensive to have kids. It's like so.
You can't pin it on one thing. It's a combination of things basically, where there's no support either. So like, there's no incentive for people to like date or have kids or build families now.
That's fucked.
Yeah, but luckily my brother Nick has a son and a daughter, so yeah, the progeny is safe.
Good job, Nick.
Good job, Nick.
Someone has to do it.
Yeah, someone has to do it.
Good thing he's a twin too.
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Like,
99% of my DNA, basically.
Basically, it's basically your son or your kids.
Okay, which practitioner is known for having popularized a variation of the Kimura, and which legs?
Tarek. I fought this guy.
It's too fucking easy, man.
I had a match against Tarek.
Yeah.
I fought him at Quintet.
So the prize, if it doesn't fit you, I promise I'll get you the right size.
Beautiful.
As a token of our appreciation.
Let's see.
Okay, you can open it.
Okay, awesome. Oh, sick. What is this?
It's an autism rash guard.
Beautiful. Oh, this is amazing.
It's an XL, but if you need an L, I'll get it to you no matter what.
XL?
Or I'll give it to Kent on Friday, basically.
We'll see. I'll be able to tell by the size. Autism. This is so good. I feel like there should be like a line of autism, like. And I reckon this should fit.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's got neurodivergent jiu-jitsu written on it as well. Yeah.
I was thinking. At B Team, there are like some stickers at the front desk, and they're just like they're actually like legitimate mental health stickers. And I'm like, bro, why do we have this? I was like, bro, we should have some autism stickers. Yeah. I feel like this. I feel like a autism jiu-jitsu sticker line would do very well. I mean, you could sell it with like something else, but
and that logo is actually the actual autism like puzzle logo.
Really?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's the actual like the autism Lego pieces for sure.
I'm very happy with this gift.
Yeah.
I'm very pleased. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so we usually end with two questions. What's a black belt mean to you?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I'm not a black belt.
Yeah, well,
I'm a brown belt.
Yeah. Everyone has like different answers basically, and I remember
cool.
I like
I mean,
it doesn't really matter these days, does it?
I mean, maybe if I did IBJJF, I'd care more. But
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I do want to do IBJJF, but
Yeah. Because like Danaher says, don't sell yourself short, but just trying to get a black belt basically, and I kind of tend to agree with him on that one as well.
it doesn't matter.
It's like, how good do you want to be, right?
I mean, I'm a brown belt. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't
I reckon. I mean,
Yeah. I like that. Very low. Yeah. Nothing. Very last question is, who'd you like to thank?
my mom, probably. My mom.
Someone
sponsors.
actually said like, I really like Józef because like when he says why does he do all this, he said he does it for his mom.
She's very supportive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, mom, family, siblings, and then obviously my sponsors. Right now, main sponsor that's helped me like since before I even traveled to the U.S. for the first time, Al Leon. Big support. I mean, other sponsors like Method Online. If my instructionals are there, if you want to support me, I mean, the Patreon stuff like that. My instructionals, but I mean, I have sponsors. For my most recent match, Psychoactive sponsor me. We have a few other logos that'll be on the kit. So I mean. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been lucky enough that throughout my journey I've been like well supported. You know, there's many people I can't even like, too many people to mention. You know, I feel fairly lucky. So
yeah, awesome. Is it off? Is it off?